Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Pulset event. We are here with Yorgos Karayorgos, and today we are going to discuss about young people's participation in democracy. Now, obviously, what we're seeing in the past years is a sharp decline in democratic practices all across the world. And I think it's more important than ever to realize the role that young people need to play in revitalizing democracy. After all, these democratic systems that we are building together need to be upheld by someone, and they cannot really be upheld by anyone else than the young generation. So, Yorgos, I would like to ask you, how do you see the contemporary role of young people in democracies worldwide?
First thing, thank you for having me here. As I used to say, sound in the podcast has something very democratic in its essence, and to discuss about democracy and youth through this media is something that completely, in favor of me, and that's I really love to. To answer to your question, I think youth and democracy live in a complicated romance, if I can say this. In On the hand of the democracy, I mean the very essence of it promises a voice. Youth insists that a voice must be heard, but I think that across Europe, this promise keeps being rewritten into something more passive, maybe more silent, and I think that this crisis it is not simply just institutional, but also cognitive, if I may say. Like politics are becoming something to be managed, rather something to be lived. And the very reasoning of the politics and these dialectical relations i- i- is being like decreasing. The very core of the thinking about democracy and politics is treating from like into a spectrum from arrogance to like a conspiracy, and the very um, I think the participation becomes increasingly a privilege by the people that can do it, can think about it. Granted, in many cases by authorities, rather than like a birth right of citizens. Um, but let me borrow this term of Anna Arendt, natality. Um, that pretty much sorry said that from the very moment that someone is born has the right to participate, has the ability to bring something new. And I think this is directly connected with what youth suppose to do. What we are seeing nowadays, it's definitely this so-called Gen Z protests more than a timely participation of the youth at the political systems and to other procedures. Maybe I think this is also caused of the like many systems tend to perceive the youth participation more tokenistic than br- to perceive them like elements of democratic societies that can bring something new. And these Gen Z protests are coming to demand something that is missing. Though I would say if they were like for me, I think that is oversimplified what we are calling Gen Z protests, and because it gives like this how to this vibe of it is like a effect of a mood swing of a demographic rather than like a structural demand for justice, for change, for transparency. And this generational branding is like a neat trick. It flatters youth, of course. I mean, with relevance while stripping them of seriousness, maybe. And I think this perception of anger-based, demand becomes like a psychological trait that nourishes meta-culture, meta-politics, um, while at the same time does not bring, with them a political judgment, if it is clear what I'm trying to say. Um, yeah, I mean, it's like this character of the youth today to be framed to their participation in these movements against like police violence or a march for Palestine is even reduced by the mainstream political rhetoric to like a youth energy and therefore even like something else. It is temporary, like a trend, maybe.
Like we've always seen this reductionism about young people's participation in politics as and in democracies in general as being one driven, as you've said, by this youthful energy and not really by awareness. It's more the fact that you are not yet that balanced as a person rather than truly having something to say. But then the question would also come, do young people really have the avenues to say what they want to say, or do they just feel the need to go out and say it directly into the street because they feel like they have no other choice for political participation?
Yeah, I mean, the venues to express your political requests are pretty limited, I would say. But uh, at the very end, the thing is that even if you are going to the street to demand, to protest, I'm not really sure if this comes from, a personal political procedure with ideological base, because the thing is that okay, you are going down to the streets. Does this thing you are representing at this point have like an ideological frame or not? Because if it's not under some like very clear stance, I think that they will be parts of this perception that they, I mean, it's an accuse for me, they have been accused of like this youth energy, because they will not manage to capitalize politically their demands. It's not just to bring the chaos, but what you are trying to do with it. I mean, what are the demands? Where are you standing? Um, and this even if it's something so democratic in its core, like it is transparency. If you are not being involved in participatory procedures, if you are not having conflicts, ideological conflicts under the in the democratic arc, I would say, um, with others, it will end up to be silenced. What you are talking of, because of over fragmentation, that will not lead to a creative synthesis, a consensus, or whatever.
There's no real coalition behind a certain effort or anything. It's, as you've said, it's being driven by a certain goal and then starting and splitting, as we're seeing with a lot of social movements,
Mhm.
splitting into smaller and smaller ideological categories and subgroups and splinter groups and so on. And yet, since young people don't really have that many formal avenues to
Mhm.
participate in democratic processes, they are basically forced to take this as one of the options that they would have in this context. But what would you see as being a positive change that might happen in the political participation of youth in the coming years? Because what we're seeing is young people getting reactivated politically, coming back from this post-COVID freeze and starting and using their voice once again. But how could you see a materialization of these efforts into something more concrete, into a political force or into a certain platform for young people?
I think that there are some, traditional ways to express politically yourself in democracy, but because we are heading towards what we are calling meta politics, the thing what we have to do is spot the problematic areas, and first of all, because we're heading at this direction, the very first problem is that everything is a result of the erosion of public reasoning. This thing is not accidental. Um, some days ago, I was writing for PalZ an article, "Has the intellectuals left the building?" And I mean, anti-intellectualism has become like a political tool, celebrating simplicity as a virtue and turning distrust into a process of conquer the common sense, but not in terms of something that is being reasoned, rather than like have the intuition of it. Um, the big heads, mock knowledge, and this is something that I think is being adopted by very from also the youth. I don't know to what extent, but yeah, they definitely follow this trend. The thing is that the problem with youth and you have like two very this great varieties of youth. The one that they experience democracy not as a civic lesson, but as a question of survival, inequality rising, the climate is collapsing, housing vanishing. Um, and their protests are something that exists to democrats to make visible their demands, and the other one is like these young people that are passive. I mean, I don't really care about that. I mean, politics is not for me. Yeah, but politics cares about you, and I mean, we are still like a machines that produce politics if we are doing nothing. And this is a distinction of what's happening that we should keep in mind. In general, I don't think that even with the rise of authoritarian regimes in Europe and beyond, young people are not rejecting democracy. I think they want redesigning of it. And this has to do also with digital life, because this speed that comes like from the digitality at the same time with physical presence affects how we perceive participation. But this is the thing. To reclaim politics as an action and not a far remote administration is something that I don't think that young people, youth in general, has been able to articulate it exactly yet. And the it must be associated with freedom and creativity and fairness. Yeah, and to not let's say trap ourselves to this tokenistic institutional initiatives that the experiment, with democracy and youth, but in the very end, uh, face us with like an uplift of the eyebrow accuse us for immaturity. Yeah. So this is the thing because this will end up to results of like something like double alienation. The youth will be like bored and have like this I miss the word to say it, disappointment of a system that don't want their agency, but at the same time, the democracy will found itself, the representative democracy, with people that uh, they don't care about it. And someone who will come to promise easy solutions and give like the answers for the people. I mean, I remember some, like this motto, not in our name. Uh, yeah, we will have found ourselves in a place that someone will come and say, "I will do it on your name, and it will be great." Someone, it's already doing this, like to the other side of the Atlantic. Uh, so yeah, like it's not even a foresight. This it's like we have the omen. Let's read it.
Let's see, coming back a bit to the idea of anti-intellectualism that we are seeing, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's part of a broader trend of aversion towards complexity. We
Mm-hmm.
are consuming more and more simplified information, and not only that, but we expect more and more simplicity in every aspect of daily life. And what we're seeing with democracy, or at least with its contemporary form, is the fact that it's an inherently complex system. It is governed by so many checks and balances. It is governed by so many different vectors of power that
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard for a person who is not involved in the field to keep track of all the political movements that are happening in a democratic system. If over this you also overlap another layer of a democratic system, which is the European Union, it becomes harder and harder to track as an ordinary citizen. And it becomes something too complex to bother, essentially. So, what I think is very interesting to see is the fact that maybe out of this aversion towards complexity, young people are not only becoming disillusioned
Mm-hmm.
with democracy, but also they are starting to get more and more of an affinity towards authoritarian regimes because, as you've said, they have a promise of simplicity behind them. And I even remember reading a study a few months ago, if I'm correct, from the UK, in which around 50% of young men declared that they would favor an authoritarian regime over a democracy, which I'd say is a ridiculously worrying statistic. I've also seen similar stats in Romania as well, where around
Mm-hmm.
40% of people declared that they would rather have an authoritarian system instead of a democratic one. And young people are drivers of these political forces because since they feel marginalized from the mainstream system, it is somehow very expectable for them to look for alternatives in this regard. And they find them in this sort of paramount leader that we keep seeing pop up in so many countries across the world, which can promise them quick fixes to their issues. And if it's not a material fix to a material issue, then it's going to be something that's going to come out of the idea of values, of greatness, of pride. Because pride you can cultivate, but housing you need to build, you need to invest. Pride, nationalism, aggressiveness, all of these are things that, with the right discourse, you can cultivate and bring back as a factor of pride and of dignity compared to fixing the material ills that actually plague young people. So, how would you say that young people should relate to this of new wave of authoritarianism, and especially what we're seeing from the side of the far right, also combined with ethno-nationalism, with xenophobia, with
Mm-hmm.
anti-migrant sentiment, and so on? Why do young people move so much towards this direction, and how can we bring them back towards authentic participation, or even invite them to sit down and reform the current systems that displease them?
Yeah. As for these authoritarian regimes and far right, I think their flag, because they cannot solve these materialistic aspects. The flag is the cultural wars, and the first cannon shot is like the moral shock. And all this has to do with what you began with, the anti-intellectualism. But this is something that comes like from a chronic disease of like a long, let's say, market policies that were unable to deliver more democracy below. And now you have like a European Union that calls for urgency and urgent states. And this is something that overpass like the very basic terms of democracy to discuss about it. And the discussion has to do with intellectuality. I mean, it's something that goes in contra with what democracy requires. And intellectualism, anti-intellectualism, sorry, wants a world without friction, while democracy requires friction everywhere. Uh, it does not have to do like these days with burning like the books in public squares. Well, at least I don't know what will happen in 15 years from now. But it is like a mocking of the knowledge of the expert, uh, with the professors, and this didn't happen like overnight. It We are experiencing the age of information evidence, and knowledge hasn't become more democratic, only more confusing, because even media literacy that promises the way to connect the dots is something that takes very much time. Uh, the internet also, especially the social media, although they firstly launched like a global public square, they're turning opinion into currency, and platforms reward like mostly outrage or insight. And suddenly, the person who says, "I'm just asking the questions," holds more power than the one who actually has the answers. But, i- it's like this manipulation side by side, and asking, okay, who can tell like the difference of it? When reality becomes something that is subjective, but I'm not in favor either of objectivity. I don't think that this thing is something that is actually out there. But I do believe in fact-based intersubjectivity. But what most of people uh, don't understand is that to have like a subjective perception of something does not make it like a dogma. It is, there are some memes that say, okay, why fascism is like bad. I mean, tell me why say me the arguments of it, or why imperialism was or colonialism was something that caused like harm. And I'm like, are you joking? This is the very core of who is the Dracula in the room. If we cannot agree to this, what is the starting point of our discussion? And this is when this anti-intellectualism is like can be seen, because the contrary, the intellectual is turned into an insult. I mean, accountability of them, the demand of accountability, sorry, becomes like elitism, because it's not something that is like something shared. The evidence-based opinions is almost arrogance. Critic becomes treason. And this fourth reason, to elaborate it a bit, because it might be a bit vague, it is what we mentioned as the moral shock. This when you critique these nationalistic narratives, you are immediately becoming a national traitor of the order of what is safe. And this is not something that is like accidental. It goes hands in hands with a more general perception of what security should look like in our era, who the enemy is, why is the enemy, how we should perceive ourselves to be like sustained and able to fight for our beliefs in one homogeneous entity. So yeah, this is it. I mean the uh, aim of the youth people should not be that far from what it has been expected to be. Criticize, be part of a democracy that it's not like an autopilot. Um, Question things why they're happening like that, and um, we have a podcast series under Palzed, the Vox Civica, and I was discussing the this thing with Professor Donatella Della Porta from Scuola Normale Superiore about protests, and mentioned something quoted more so this from prison journals of how is the name of him? Uh, I completely forgot it. Anyway, from an Italian Marxist that says that we are living in a transitional period full of monsters, and we are waiting the baby that will bring the new to be born. If we don't want to see the baby looks like the Rosemary's baby, maybe it's upon us. We will form the DNA of the new, and this brings also back this the very uh, meaning of natality. You don't have to compromise. You are expected to bring something new.
But there also need to be pathways for participation in this regard. There also needs to be not an open invitation, but an environment which actually welcomes your input instead of being pushed to the side or being limited to participate in democracy only through vote. Because obviously this is the main pathway for participation for most people. But since we see a genuine concern with the functioning of democracy all across Europe, we also see declining vote rates, which is very sad to see that even the most basic manifestation of your democratic principles and of your democratic will is dwindling election after election. So, how can we make things more inviting for people? How can we lend a hand and support this rebirth of authentic
Mhm.
democracies in Europe?
Firstly, I had to check it because I was my mind was at the very edge of it. Is the name of the philosopher, and it was Antonio Gramsci. Uh, Now to answer to your question, I think that the most radical thing we can do, either we are youth or just like someone who is like in 40s, 50s, is to understand that the political life goes beyond the ballot, and understand also that our political action is something that it's not to be like be performed every 4 years or 5 years. So this is a very basic, demand of try to transform like what democracy looks like. Also, we have to understand that life does not ends in the doorhouse of our home, but it is out there, and it is expected to be shared with the others. Um, at the same time, meaningful democracy for me, the paths for that for the this reclaiming the legitimacy of understanding, and is when knowledge is treated like LTs, as I mentioned before, youth can like respond by making knowledge more openly social again. Community journalism, for example, collaborative research, campus assemblies, investigative podcasts. Maybe all these, for someone are like hobbies, academic hobbies, but there are very close to the core of the democratic infrastructure, because they fight the political loneliness, the that anti-intellectualism and authoritarian regimes breeds of. Um, they insist that public life must remain rooted in shared reality, and it's this uh, triangle that says like the core of democracy comes from thesis, antithesis, synthesis, and to bring this like to the public sphere, it cannot happen if you are just hanging out alone and do not discuss like what's happening, the political ideologies there. You have to be able to um, discuss about politics, not in a dogmatic way, but in my opinion, accept only what is under the democratic arc. And this does not like exclude even the political violence, but if we are perceive it like in this context, because even the protests that we are seeing, these so-called Gen Z protests, are becoming are questioning, to say it better, the monopoly of violence from the state.
Absolutely.
So
It's
yeah.
the principle that holds the state together after all. And if you're trying to change the structures of the state, then you have to capture the monopoly of violence.
Exactly. And, the streets remain the only place where bodies interrupt the routine of governance. You don't have to search like elsewhere for where to like demand for, your rights to and your voice to be heard. I mean, the street is where inequalities become like visible and your voice become impossible to mute. And we see from Italy with uh, they passed. I think I cannot remember the exact number of the law. They passed a law that is very strict about who can raise his voice at the street. Orban in Hungary denounced like the pride, but it happened, and also in Italy, we can if we go like 2 weeks ago from now, we will see these massive waves of people marching for the being in contra with the genocide in Palestine.
Very interesting to see, I'd say, how this resurgence, not necessarily of violence, but of assertiveness, I would call it,
Hmm.
in the public discourse, is finally starting to pay off, because we are not yet in the situation where violence from the side of the state can silence these voices. And I
Hmm.
think this is a very opportunistic moment for in general for the average population to start demanding their needs in a firm manner without fear of repression. Sure, repression sadly still happens, including in Europe, but it is very much an opportunistic moment to demand firmly. And out of this, we can see genuine coagulations of efforts, which can turn into legitimate political forces in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, I think that young Europeans know that this. democracy is not defended by caution. When civil disobedience forces a city to reroute traffic or delays a shipment of weapons, suddenly political comfort is disrupted, and power will respond. It is forced to acknowledge the concern. It tried to ignore or even put this aside because it will not serve their interest, for example. And this does not have to do with recklessness, if I may say. It is a strategy. It is like an understanding that the politics becomes an arena of urgency without deliberation. Um, and the more the public must insist on appearing. I mean, um, streets are uh, part of like democracy in an essence of constitutional right, and not written just on the paper, but manifested in motion. And we should reclaim that. Even before one, we were discussing about this anti-intellectualism. My mind always goes like to this historical moment for social movements in Europe on May 68. Uh, the very first principles of it was the debates, even if they didn't produce something at last, and it was like something that was more about the conflict than the result. And they made it to paralyze a whole country. But even if we consider these actions as actions that didn't brought up like the result they were expecting, they gave to European history a milestone that we cannot ignore. And it's like this the motto of this like bring imagination to power. I don't think that there is a more suitable demographic category to bring like this than youth.
And I've been meaning to ask you, you are about to take part in the World Forum for Democracy hosted by the Council of Europe, no?
Hmm.
Now, this sort of platform offers a lot of people and a lot of young people as well, not necessarily only the World Forum for Democracy, but in general, these youth participatory platforms offer young people the opportunity to genuinely take part in the dialogue for policy and for safeguarding democracy. But to what extent do you still believe that international institutions such as the Council of Europe can safeguard democracies across our continent?
Yeah. To be honest, I think that international institution nowadays failed at some point to defend the democracy. But if we are coming back to the role of youth, what I have seen so far, and with my role as the youth delegate of Greece to the Global Assembly of Amnesty International, is that youth people are trying to redesign this. Maybe this became like for tokenistic reasons, but we don't see it like that. Uh, no one will participate to this just for the sake of participate to this, but will try to make the voice to his voice to be heard. And I think that this is critical, especially for countries that face authoritarian regimes and practices. An example is the delegate from Turkey that spoke openly about what's happening in his country. And after some months, the government of Erdogan arrested him. The good thing is that the Council of Europe had like quick reflexes to say, okay, we demand to let him free, and we can openly debate about what's happening. But at the same time, you see that businesses is uber alles. There are countries like Turkey, Belarus, and Russia are like red flags. No one will discuss with them nowadays. But like Turkey, Hungary, we can say like Italy or even like US. Um, I think that EU don't care exactly what is happening nowadays in these countries. But can we make the work be done? If yes, it's their problem. And these principles of Europe just are being vanished, and this is like the hard power. It's comforting belief in Europe that the international institutions exist as guardians of democracy, but I'm skeptical. It's like this, all of these institutions formatted after the end of the World War II, in a moment where it was like a consensus to sign "Never Again," not as a slogan, but as something structural. Yet the kind of reality is is more ambiguous, I'm afraid. So, I mean, institutions defend
And we
democracy mostly on paper.
we've seen other international structures also fail. If we look at the League of Nations, for example, which failed
Hmm.
in the Second World War, and it ended up happening and restructuring the world once again. And I think it's very important, at least in this privileged situation that we are in right now, to understand that after all, these institutions don't work without the support of citizens, and they will not gain the support of citizens if they do not offer full transparency and if they do not allow for meaningful pathways of participation.
Totally. But taking the example of the Palestine and Israel right now, it's not the job of protests to end up a genocide, but to create to fulfill like the terms, the requirements of the pressure to the institutions in order to demand something to be stopped. And for example, the formation of the Israel state was under very strict terms. For example, accepting and be in line with the UN resolutions. And this is something that is not happening. And when we are creating, these moments of international law becomes like a paper where we can apply it whenever we want and surpass it when it's not something that goes along with our interests. Uh, this, creates also a moral shock to the society, but uh, it decreases the if we're talking about the soft power of this moral leader that tried the very unified entity or whatever you try to be. And we're discussing just for European λοιπόν, completion, but at the same time, I'm not sure how like a federation could be formed, for example, without this Carta.
And to wrap it all nicely, I would ask you, how would you envision the future of democracy in Europe in one word?
Oof.
Take your time.
Hmm. Actually, this is a very difficult question because I'm a huge fan of podcasts, And I was hearing another one just yesterday. And the final question was something like that, but about if you can describe what is progressive today, what that would be. And it was like, oof, I wouldn't, I wouldn't like to be to his position. But I think democracy, especially at an international level, must be something like a global practice of shared agency, transnational and deeply local at the same time. This is these aren't like one word, but it's how I perceive it. I mean, the democracy of the future is not like the triumph of institutions we were discussing on the latter of our discussion. Is the persistence of public courage. It thrives wherever someone says we deserve to be heard and we will try our best to do it, and others join that voice, and suddenly you have this power that must be answered. The world ahead will be saved by those who believe that democracy is not only something to protect, it's something to reinvent, to not let it go with in the autopilot. I mean, this is my nightmare. That we will have something that we will not have to participate in it. How we are going to control it? If we have now problems with the representative forms of democracy, if you have something that goes just on its own, this will be like a nightmare. I mean, even Orwell or Huxley would be like, "Oh man, please no," you know. So yeah, this if must go like to a phrase, I would say that please get rid of metapolitics.
Thank you so much, Yorgos, and it was really nice to have you with us for another online event for Parzet. I really appreciated your perspectives on the matter, and I would like to thank our audience for joining us for another event. And see you soon.
Thank you, Dragos. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed also this conversation, and I hope that things eventually will go good. Let's be optimistic, but also participatory.
Absolutely. Build with intentionality.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.